welcome back to our second season of The Final Glass. The show about history is the way we want it, don't want it, and really is. And of course, the show is based on an Oscar Wilde quote, which is,
After the first glass, we see things as we want them to be. After the second glass, we see things as they are not. But after the final glass, we see things as they are. And that is the most horrible thing of all.
it's really horrible, especially in today's world. So last season, we would take current events and then we'd relate them kind of to how we got there in history, the kind of spider web of how things work together. And also, my favorite saying, how everything old is new again. This season, things are happening way too fast. There are too many things happening. There's too much going on. And everything we do is out of date 5 minutes after we do it. And since we still have to edit and whatever, we decided that we would actually go with some of the best history movies of all time, discussing them, how they relate to today, and how they portray things in the reality of it. As you can see, we will be joined from time to time by our many cats. There are actually only two, but two is many. Two is 12, and 12 is 24, and so on and so forth. So this is Maggie. Jadwiga, our Siberian, might make an appearance later on. So let's go ahead and get started talking about what we will be drinking today as we discuss one of my favorite movies of all time, Mel Brooks' History of the World, Part 1.
So we can start with me. I'll be drinking a Glenmorangie limited edition Tale of Ice Cream. So Scotch has to be made in a certain way. And the character of Scotch and all the different flavors have to come from a limited list of ingredients, a place where the Scotch is distilled, the water that they use, a place that the Scotch is matured, the altitude, the
Barrels.
humidity, and the last thing is the barrels.
Yeah.
So Glenmorangie managed to make a Scotch taste like ice cream using only those.
Which seems magical to me. That seems like a magical idea.
It truly seems magical, and it is one of the best scotches that I've had. And the best thing to me is it's a limited edition, so after it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And we will have to move on to something else.
However, as we bought this not very long ago, maybe 2 months ago in Germany, and as anyone who's been there knows, you're not getting off cheaply buying anything in Germany. And so this is available cheaper in places that are not Germany. And so even though the limited nature of it is part of the wonderful experience, we're still trying to find at least one more bottle because this one went quick.
Yeah, at a more reasonable price.
At a more reasonable price. Yes, at an un-German price.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, when I grew up on an island, and so my parents actually took me to the movie theater to see History of the World Part 1. They assumed that most of the jokes were going to go right over my head, and they did, except that I, of course, then began singing some of the songs, some of the more inappropriate songs, one of which we'll get to, at very inopportune moments and embarrassing my parents. But we're Gen X. Gen X parents took their kids to see whatever was playing at the movie theater. There was no is this appropriate for children? Everything was considered appropriate for children. I was talking to two of my friends. I have friends, Rochelle and Melinda. And Rochelle and Melinda, I mentioned that we were doing this movie and that my parents had taken me. And Rochelle said, oh, my parents took me to the drive-in to see Blazing Saddles. And Melinda chimed in with she went to see Cheech and Chong with her parents as well. So, and your mother, I think my favorite inappropriate movie.
The most inappropriate movie, The Owl and the Pussycat.
Yeah, that was, we all love Streisand as an actress and singer, but maybe you're not taking... But if you're Gen X, yes, you went to see that. Other movies that I saw at the theater with my mother, Jaws.
Yeah.
The Exorcist.
Movies I saw by myself, Porky's.
Yes. If you could sneak in, I also snuck in as part of growing up. But in any case, this time history of the world, and because in honor of my growing up and seeing history of the world on the island that I was living on at that time, I'm doing Malibu rum with pineapple juice, which absolutely makes me want to go barbecue some swordfish at the beach, I have to say. So,
And rum liqueur, all the taste and half the alcohol.
half the alcohol and hopefully none of the hangover, because I do not hold my alcohol as well as I used to.
Cheers.
Cheers. That is just, this is just makes me so summer happy. You know what? I want to go barbecue swordfish on the beach, listening to What's Love Got to Do with It, or Private Dancer. Those two songs, those are the ones I remember playing the most.
Sadly, the first pour just makes me want to have the second pour. So we should get into the movie.
Okay, so let's start with, okay, I do have to kind of laugh. We're not going to make any other connections, but I love the Kubrickian beginning of the movie with the caveman who then, start having personal fun.
Yes.
I thought that was fun. It still made me laugh. We haven't seen this movie for decades, and we were quoting the lines along with it. So
and the truth of the first artist and the first art critic.
No, that was true.
So close to each other is true.
And now in the age of YouTube, everyone is an art critic, and they basically step in and piss on your work no matter what. So moving on ahead to Rome. This was the first time Gregory Hines appeared in a movie, and I just love Gregory Hines.
Oh, I should mention my getup quickly.
You should. Even though we're past that because we wanted to drink.
We're on the second season now, but I had laser eye surgery, and so my eyes don't stand up well in the studio lights here that we use. They're extremely bright, and I would just end up squinting and sneezing and just making a general fool of myself. I prefer to use alcohol to do that instead of lighting.
Yeah, alcohol, but it's also more fun with alcohol. If we get enough alcohol into him, he might be that Cossack dancing. So.
I might, indeed.
Yeah, we'll see. So let's talk about Gregory Hines' first appearance. He's being sold as a slave. He says he's from Ethiopia. They say they're going to throw him to the lions because Christians get thrown to lions. He says, oh no, I'm a Jew, which at that time in Ethiopia... Right? This is from King Solomon in the Bible, then Queen of Sheba, Ethiopia. So yes, we're sticking close to the story here. They check he is not a Jew, in fact, and he is a Christian, so they're going to throw him to the lions. And the idea is that it was only Christians that were thrown to the lions. False.
So the truth, the Jewish Egyptian, true. The
Jewish Egyptian. Jewish Ethiopian.
Jewish Ethiopian.
True.
The only Christians being thrown to lions.
False. Yes. In the 1981 words of Roger Ebert. Or the words of the Roman emperor.
That's what I was
actually, I was thinking, but I think it was any movement. There was something about the thumb going down. It was not necessarily going down. We'll get into that some other time. It doesn't come into play.
But in the movie, it was definitely this or this.
Yes. So there were actually a lot of people that could be thrown to the lions. And let's start with the lions. Actually, they usually weren't lions. They threw them to just about anything. They would throw them to bears, to half-starved, of course. Bears, boars.
And they started with what they had initially, which was wild dogs.
Wild dogs. And it was not at this time, which we see later on, that this is about the year 33, because Jesus makes an appearance.
Yes.
Which is a great part.
All right. Jesus.
Yes.
What?
What?
And so at that time, Christians were not being thrown to wild animals. This was not until Nero. Nero, after the Great Fire of fiddle fame, he threw Christians to dogs to rip them up. After that, he was like, hey, that was kind of fun. What else can we throw them to? And he began throwing them to other animals. The most common animal that they would throw people to, and the people that they threw when not Christians, were either terrible, terrible criminals or runaway slaves. So the most common animal that everybody liked the most to throw them to, tigers. But I guess throw them to the tigers doesn't sound, they're great.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound as,
It doesn't have the same ring to it.
doesn't have the same ring as lions.
Yes.
And this was actually not a Roman invention. The Romans did not, they were very good at cultural appropriation. They culturally appropriated before it was cool.
Yeah. This was
Yeah.
done in Carthage.
Yeah, this started with the Carthaginians. And so we know that Hamilcar Barca, the father of Hannibal, he liked to throw people to the lions. But Hannibal himself, he kind of evolved a little bit. He would have them, especially captured Romans, fight each other to the death. And then whoever survived would get trampled by elephants.
And the fighting each other to the death was an aspect of History of the World Part 1. So they got that correct as well.
Yeah, there were a lot of things they put in there. And I want to kind of dial it back just a minute on this to say that if you're this is how we taught our kids history. Not this movie, however. We tended to use the horrible history books. So all of our kids, my nieces, my nephews, all of the kids in our extended family are readers. And part of the reason that they're readers is that we always provided them with stuff that was interesting to read. Horrible history gets into like the boogers and farts of history, for lack of a better way to put it. And if you're trying to get an 8-year-old boy interested in history and interested in reading, horrible histories is the way to go. And so this is basically horrible histories for adults.
Like the Romans, you have to meet people at their level and in the place where they are.
And in the case of 8-year-old boys, that's boogers and farts.
It's true.
So that is the lowdown on throwing people to various wild animals. Yes, and a little bit of no. Oh, we did actually get to see, they did this at the Colosseum. So if you've been to Rome, you've seen this as well. So we've seen the Colosseum, but we did actually get to see where Saint Perpetua was thrown to. In her case, it was a rabid cow. And then she was killed because the cow didn't kill her, I guess. But this was in what is now Tunis and Tunisia. It was Carthage at the time. So it's really interesting to go to these places and kind of think back to what was happening there. It's insane. You start wondering about the physics of time.
Yeah.
So the next part, we'll go right into the next part, still on the first glass of the movie that was very interesting, was the Vestal Virgin.
And the reason we're going in on the first glass is after the second glass, I'm sure I'd have some more creative and more interesting things to say, but perhaps less appropriate for a family podcast.
I don't know that it's a family podcasting. I mean, maybe if you're trying to get the little kids to sleep. But in any case, so this is actually the part of the movie that my parents regretted taking me to, because 6-year-old Ruthie thought it was extremely hilarious to copy and sing Empress Nympho's song when she's selecting her orgy partners. No, no, yes. No, no, yes. No, 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 yes, no, yes. Exactly. And everybody saw the movie. There's only one movie theater on the island where I grew up. And so everybody knew what I was singing. And God, my poor parents.
But Vestal Virgins existed.
Yes. And while they didn't have physical no entry signs, they did have kind of like an aura of no entry. And one thing about it that was extremely true, they were beautiful. And it's not that they were beautiful. It's that when they were chosen, they had to be free from blemishes and defects. So physical and mental, you couldn't get rid of your crazy sister. But between 6 and 10, they were chosen. They had to be free of any kind of blemish. They had to be great. And so they were. They were beautiful. And they served 30 years.
And they did have some feminist superpowers.
They did, yeah. Unlike other Roman women who were subject to whatever men said they had to do, what the men had the money, the men. Vestal virgins were responsible for their own money. They could give their own money to whomever they wished. They could keep their money, like however that worked. They had bodily autonomy. They
couldn't have sex.
They couldn't have sex, but it was also punishable by death to violate one or attack one, not just to have sex with them, but to violate or attack them.
Which was in the movie.
This was in the movie. Yeah, if you're caught with the Vestal Virgins. So that was true. At the end of 30 years, they were usually in their late 30s, early 40s. They were allowed to choose to leave and have a family, or they could retake their vows. Interestingly, most of them retook their vows, which I understand, because you've been a strong, independent woman who didn't need no man for 30 years, and now society wants you to submit to some dude who's going to tell you what you can and can't do and take all your money, and sex isn't that important. Or at least it wasn't to them. Maybe to some people.
And another power they had in the movie, which we give a thumbs up to, is the ability to pardon criminals.
They could pardon criminals, yes, yeah. Just by touching them while the criminal was on the way to execution. Now, you were not supposed to prearrange this, but I mean, everybody knows there's going to be an execution, right? So you either walk a different direction or you have a plan. So, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, sunshine and celibate rainbows for the Vestal Virgins. There were some things about being a Vestal Virgin that could come back and bite you. So
one of the things was when things went wrong.
Yes, absolutely. If things went wrong, then you were blamed. You must be having sex. That must be happening. It couldn't just be that things are shitty, or that, a
bad harvest,
or a bad emperor.
Couldn't
be any of those things. A Vestal Virgin must have had sex, but they couldn't spill her blood. So they had to get creative.
They entombed them.
Yes. They did a funeral procession. Nobody was allowed to see or hear the Vestal Virgin as she was taken to her tomb. She was given food and things to drink, and then basically buried alive to die. Unmarked. So I do not believe we found any Vestal Virgin tombs, but it actually didn't happen that often. There was one other way that it could be assumed that a Vestal Virgin had had sex, not just because things were going badly. And that was what was called prodigy. So a prodigy for us is like Gary Kasparov playing chess. A prodigy in this instance means something like a two-headed calf being born. Oh no, the gods are angry. Kill a Vestal Virgin, make them happy again. That was how that went. So, Vestal Virgins. So maybe we go to our see things as they are not.
Yes.
I would like to say also, these glasses that I'm using are very Balkan glasses, because they're not really glasses. They are actually mustard containers. And everybody in the Balkans uses this mustard and then washes them out and then drinks from them. So my son has requested a full set of mustard glasses. So that's what we're working on right now. So
I believe the less dishes, the better.
Prost. Yeah, I really like this. But I do want some Tina Turner right now. Okay.
I can sing.
No, thank you.
Maybe not. Maybe leave it to Gregory Hines.
Yeah, leave it to him to dance. So another admission I have to make. I think that I probably married a Slav because I watched Gregory Hines and Mikhail Baryshnikov in White Nights so often.
Yeah, I've been that way before. Man, it's like no place I want to be. So I just keep on moving.
But more Mikhail Baryshnikov and less Gregory Hines in that instance.
No, not the dancing. I mean, they were, but that is listen, you know what? That is the single best dance scene that has ever been filmed. And if you don't agree with me, you are simply wrong. Okay? Amazing movie. Fantastic dance scene. It was wonderful.
But now we have Seeing Things as They Are Not involving marijuana.
The use of marijuana. And that is not how it was used in ancient Rome. Do you want to explain how
So it was used in teas. And it was
No.
used...
Explain how they used it in the movie.
Ah, yes, in the movie. So in the movie, they stumble upon a field of marijuana. They grab some parchment and they roll a massive joint.
Massive!
Which they use to confuse all the Roman soldiers.
Yeah, they kind of like blow it.
We've got to get moving.
And then they're all surrounded, basically hot boxed
Yes.
around the Ostia Antica area.
So Pliny the Elder did point out that this was called the laughing weed. And that it was used, it was heated, the THC was activated with heating. It was used
He didn't know about the THC or anything, but
Yes.
he knew that it could make you a wee bit giggly.
But it was used in poultices and teas, and it was used for a wide variety of ailments.
Earaches. Rheumatoid arthritis, which is one of the things it's used for today as well. And my favorite, because I was trying to figure out how, birth control.
And I think if you smoke enough weed, you just don't want to do it.
I think that may be part of it, but it also has been proven to lower men's sperm counts. And so if that's what you're going for, so this may be the fabled male birth control.
Possible.
Versus female
possible
birth control. Yeah.
And now it's video games, not showering, and living in your mother's attic.
Or basement.
Basement.
Depending on what part of the
That's
country.
true. Yeah, basement.
So they did use the marijuana plant. They loved hemp. They used hemp for baskets, for sandals, for rope, for all the things that people like to use hemp for today as well. They used it in their weaving. But the smoking part, although I have to say that if the movie Gregory Hines, who's Josephus, had, smoked them out with a joint, that very well may be how they responded. And they wouldn't have known what's going on.
Well, the marijuana at the time had very low levels of THC. We would call it ditchweed now, but it still would have certainly had some effect.
Well,
that's the one where, they recorded it having some effect.
I would wiggle.
Yeah, I'd wiggle a little bit.
I'd wiggle. Yeah.
As the emperor would say.
So then we got to, and we're not going to discuss this one very much, but one of my favorite parts where we sang along about the Inquisition. What a show.
The Inquisition, what a show. The Inquisition, here we go. We know you're wishing that we'd go away, but the Inquisition's here and it's here to stay.
And so we did sing along with that. That remembers the auto de fe.
Auto de fe. What's an auto de fe?
It's what you oughtn't to do, but you do
anyway.
Yes, it's great. This, like, seriously, we have not watched this movie in decades, and we were singing along. I know that its score on Rotten Tomatoes actually isn't that great. I think everybody who voted against it is wrong, and it probably needs to have their ability to understand art examined. Certainly comedy.
Yes.
I just love this movie. Anyway, moving on. So from the auto de fe.
Well, we can touch on the auto de fe.
Oh, you want to?
The auto de fe, Torquemada happened. Those are all real. Those are all real events. Nuns swimming and making a giant menorah with their baby
sparklers on their heads.
With sparklers on their heads did not happen.
But may have been a really good addition. Like if we could go back in time, maybe.
Yeah, but the auto de fe itself was the act of
faith.
And so mostly it was trials for people who were considered heretics.
Well, they were considered heretics because they were conversos, which means that they had been Jewish or Muslim. Well, there was a different word for Muslims. Conversos was Jewish. And they became Christian because Ferdinand and Isabella had about enough. and of what I don't know, but became Christian and then were accused of backsliding and actually still being Jewish. And the thing is, this was largely money based because most of the people who were convicted and burned and had their things confiscated had a lot of money. This wasn't something that they were going digging up poor people for.
Yeah. And a lot of the inquisitors were conversos themselves.
Yeah, got to be more Catholic than the Pope.
More Catholic than the Pope.
Literally, in this instance, more Catholic than the Pope, which is a theme that has repeated itself recently.
Yes.
Although I won't get into that because it's not history yet.
Yes. So the auto da fe did happen. The burnings didn't happen at the auto da fe. They happened afterwards, after the trial. There was a lot of torture, and some of the descriptions
Really
of
awful.
red hot pokers were accurate.
Really awful. Breaking people's joints,
Yeah.
putting people on the wheel was not as fun. Did not look like Wheel of Fortune.
So the acts, whereas the nuns, sadly not.
And I don't think Torquemada was that fun.
No. You couldn't torque him out of anything.
No. He was not. Mel Brooks played a really fun Torquemada.
Yeah.
And I don't think Torquemada himself was actually probably any fun. Neither was Savonarola.
And
We're going to talk about the Bonfire of the Vanities, which was not featured in the film, so we should move on.
very few dance numbers.
Very, very,
They sang
because I
mass
think
sometimes.
chant.
They chant. They chanted. They chanted.
Yeah,
mass.
it's not. It just wasn't as fun. So moving on
Moving on.
to
Louis,
Louis says,
King.
and
Louis.
the eve of the French Revolution and the guillotine.
Yes.
It's good to be the king.
Okay, so first of all, Louis says himself was not like that. While it is indeed good to be the king, he was not that kind of guy. He wasn't very interested in sex. It took him 8 years to have sex with Marie Antoinette in the first place because he had a physical issue that had to be fixed, and it took Marie Antoinette's brother, the Habsburg emperor, to figure that out.
And to explain.
And well, the explanation came later because they fixed the issue, and then she still wasn't getting pregnant. And so then Joseph, her brother, was like, why? Come on now. What's going on here? Our mother had like 12 billion children and you haven't had one. And she said, well, we're doing it. I don't know. And so he finally figured out the problem was that there wasn't a lot of motion in the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe is the best way to put it. There wasn't much happening. And so he explained to them, it's not enough to merely put the key in the lock. You also need to turn it. And then babies started coming.
There was some success afterwards. One should not always wish
Shocking.
plumbing to go down.
Shocking. There was some success afterwards. And Louis himself was just not terribly interested in sex. He didn't have mistresses, although Marie Antoinette it's been back and forth that she had affairs, and even whether some of the children were Louis. But Louis himself, it wasn't good to be the king sexually for him. He just didn't care. Now, his grandfather, he was having sex. So it was very good to be that king until he died of smallpox. But
it wasn't good to
But
be
it
the
wasn't.
king in the end because of
the guillotine.
the guillotine, which the French continued to use through the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
So
Almost until this movie was made.
almost until the movie was made.
Mhm.
So after Star Wars, they continued to use the guillotine after Star Wars.
Yeah, and you can actually, if you search, you can find photographs of the last guillotine victims, which wasn't that long ago. I don't think it was within my lifetime, though. I think it was before I was born, but just slightly before I was born.
So Gen X was spared the guillotine.
No, because Gen X started in
Oh, that's a good
60.
point.
Yeah, it started with Kennedy's
Yeah.
assassination. So,
Almost spared.
yeah, almost spared, but in any case. So the portrayal of Yui, not accurate. He existed, but not accurate.
So now to see things as they really are, the
Yes.
toilets.
Oh, hold on. Nazdravia?
Oh, one more.
Or you gotta pick your thing in there. Nazdravia. I really do want a barbecue swordfish. Like, we haven't done that, I think, since I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I want to finish this bottle of scotch.
Okay.
So
toilets.
things as they really are, and toilets as they really were.
Disgusting.
There was no piss boy,
Yeah.
but there were servants who held chamber pots.
Yes. So you didn't like have a piss boy for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, of course, then he didn't look like the king. But people did have servants because the problem with Versailles was that there were not enough toilets. There weren't. And by the time of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, they were trying to install more toilets, but there were like 5,000 or 6,000 people in Versailles at the same time. And how do you deal with that many toilets? The answer is you don't. So if you have enough servants, your servant carries around a chamber pot for you. If you're a guy, you can just pee anywhere.
That's true even today.
It is true today. I'm not even going to go into examples on that one. The problem was that they took pee anywhere, and in some cases poop anywhere, a little too literally. To the point that a rule had to be made that the corridors of Versailles would be swept clean of dirt and feces at least once a week. So can you imagine? Imagine going to visit Versailles now. It's, I mean, if you go to the very first, when it first opens, because after that, it's ridiculous. But you're looking at these gorgeous hallways and everything's painted and mirrored and beautiful, and there's poop. There isn't now, but there was then. Just horrifying. And Versailles was well known for being disgustingly stinky.
And the guides are historians, but they won't let you execute history.
You know what? Just because people did that in history doesn't mean I don't want to cop a squat in the Hall of Mirrors. It's not. First of all, can you imagine how disconcerting that would be? You're in the Hall of Mirrors.
Yeah, maybe not that one.
That's bad. And no, thank you. But people at Versailles did not seem to be as bothered by this maybe as we are today. There was one princess who would just pee herself wherever she happened to be. And the servants hated her because then they had to clean up after her. But I'm wondering why they even bothered, because everybody else was peeing and pooping and they weren't following them around with towels. I don't know what to say about it. The piss boy, yes, kind of, no, kind of. But also it just leads you into that whole downward spiral of reading about hygiene at Versailles and
the people were revolting.
Yes, but yes, that is true.
They stink on ice.
The people are revolting.
You said it. They stink on ice.
Another line that we yelled out as Mel Brooks said it. Yeah. It was, the other thing, nobody house trained their pets. And, the women had all these little dogs. And they would just pee and poop everywhere too. And they would also just throw their chamber pots from their rooms out. Not worry. In fact, Marie Antoinette herself almost got hit by real toilet water, not the kind that you spray on because it smells good.
And so this was so bad in the world of this time that even the Scottish had a specific word for it at Edinburgh, gardeloo.
Yeah, that was,
and they would yell it before, after, or during, when the time they were emptying their chamber pots.
Just horrific. Absolutely horrific. And anytime someone says, I wish I lived in that time. And I think of, first of all, guillotines. And second of all, chamber pots and no toilets. And I think I'm good with now.
And France.
I think I'm good with now with flush toilets.
Beggars. Begging from beggars.
Yeah. And the woman, the peasant who didn't have money to buy yarn, but she was still knitting.
Yes.
Okay. Also, shout out B. Arthur in the beginning, who basically just played Dorothy from the Golden Girls, handing out unemployment to comicists for bullshitting.
Yes. Did you try bullshitting?
Have you bullshit this week? So that was great. So that would be History of the World Part 1. Definitely one of my favorites.
Yes.
So with that, next week we will 2 thumbs up to all the thumbs up, every thumb up. One of my favorite movies. Next week we'll be talking about the movie Alexander.
But we won't spoil it.
No, we're not going to spoil it. I'm going to let my facial subtitles do the talking.
Excellent.
So, and I think I will do gin next week. So that will be fun. Until next week, to the final glass.
To the final glass.
What to do?